It's Tuesday, the 10th of March. From the MEN newsroom, this is Channel M's Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. Fighting for its cash, the Christie is forced to take legal action to reclaim its millions from an Icelandic bank. Also coming up, back to the drawing board, the ashtrays getting stolen that were supposed to keep our streets clear of cigarette butts.
And there's a lot of divots on the floor as well, so it is quite dirty and unhygienic, so yeah.
And a taste of Italy, the menu being cooked up for Jose Mourinho's men as Inter Milan arrive in town.
Well, to be an Italian team, there'll be a lot of pasta. I don't think they have any red meat at all.
Good afternoon. First, staff at the Christie are facing losing £6.5 million they had invested in an Icelandic bank. The money was held by Kaupthing, Singer and Friedlander when it collapsed last year. The only option for the world-famous cancer hospital now is legal action. Here's Kevin Duffy.
Yes, thanks, James. Now, what we're talking about here is the Financial Services Compensation Scheme and its officials who have told the Christie that the charity does not qualify for a payout. And that means that £6.5 million, all of which has been donated by ordinary members of the public. Remember, that £6.5 million is still missing as far as Christie is concerned. And let's just remind us how the charity got into this situation. It was the collapse of the Icelandic bank Kaupthing, Singer and Friedlander, KSF, last year. Now, Christie say that before they invested this £6.5 million with KSF, they were told by their financial advisors that the bank was A1 in terms of its credit rating and it gave the best interest rates and was therefore a good bet. Of course, as we now know, that turned out not to be the case. So, where does all of this leave the Christie? Well, it looks as though the battle isn't yet over, because today their chief executive, Carolyn Shaw, has said the next step is to seek a judicial review of this decision by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. But of course, that could be a lengthy and certainly a costly battle. And the hospital has confirmed that, in the meantime, certain cancer research projects, including one that was to be carried out by Manchester University, cannot now be funded. Back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, this news has come as a shock to husband and wife John and Joyce Shacklock, whose son Daniel died of leukaemia after being treated there. They've spent much of the last 14 years raising more than £180,000 for the hospital, and some of that cash could be what's currently in dispute.
See, as the government can pour millions of our money out of my back pocket into banks that have failed. Christie, who are saving lives and struggled for 14 months to save my son's life, unfortunately they failed. Why can't they get it? Isn't saving lives more important than a banker's back pocket? Because that's what it boils down to.
Why is it that some people can get away with something, but the hospital that needs funding has been let down? It is very, very bad.
Well, we'll hear more from them in our early evening news from 5 o'clock tonight. The Christie isn't the only organisation here in Greater Manchester that had money caught up in the Icelandic banking collapse. Manchester Metropolitan University had £10 million invested. Manchester University had £5 million. Bolton Council is trying to recover £6 million. And the Museum of Science and Industry is also trying to get back £900,000. They're all yet to find out if they've been successful in getting the money returned. The Continuity IRA says it was behind the killing of a policeman last night in Northern Ireland. Constable Stephen Carroll was shot dead while he was on duty in County Armagh. It follows the shooting dead of two soldiers by the real IRA 2 days ago, raising fears of a new campaign of violence. Manchester could host an international conference that could bring £90 million to the region. The city will find out on Saturday if it's been chosen to host the International Lions Convention in 2014. With 8,000 delegates requiring 15,000 hotel nights and every venue from Manchester Central Convention Centre complex to the MEN Arena needed, it will be the biggest conference staged in the city. It's thought the other final bidders are from North America. A pensioner from Oldham who was injured in a car crash in January has died of septicemia. Anthony Chester was hit by a parked car as it was reversing while he was trying to cross the street. It knocked the 73-year-old to the ground and he was later taken to hospital. Police are now trying to trace anyone who saw what happened. A search is on for a man police say groomed a schoolgirl from Bolton on the internet and then had sex with her. This is an image of who police want to question. They say the girl had got chatting to a man calling himself Paul in an online chat room who travelled up from London on a motorbike to see her. She says he knew she was underage and he hasn't been seen since. Ashtrays that were to be fixed onto every litter bin in Manchester city centre are having to be redesigned. The council's having a rethink after thieves began stealing them. With more on this, here's Nina Warhurst.
Well, it might not look particularly valuable, but because of the rising price of scrap metal, ashtrays like these have been disappearing from litter bins across the city centre.
Manchester City Council had set aside £125,000 to install 1,000 of the ashtrays, but the determination of the metal thieves has meant they've had to rethink their plans, which is a shame because cigarette butts really seem to be dragging down the area.
It doesn't give a very good image at all, does it? No, it lets down the city, I think. You know, because so many people judge a city by the cleanliness.
I think along with litter in general, it just doesn't give a very good impression.
Do you find as a smoker sometimes you've got no option but to put it on the floor?
Yeah, true. It is a definite because there's no ashtrays basically, so you just put it on the floor, unfortunately. It also attracts rubbish as well, you know, like dimps everywhere, and it does look dirty on the floor, so it's not nice. No.
So it looks like we're all in agreement. We'd like to stop out the littering of cigarette dimps. Well, we've been here for about an hour, and in that time, these metal ashtrays have been incredibly well used. And every smoker we've spoken to agrees that they're a great idea, and they'd like to see more of them.
Yeah, I really like them. Keeps it off the street, doesn't it, at the end of the day?
Do you think we should see more of them across the city? Would it make it easier for smokers?
I think there should be a lot more. There's not a lot of them about, because if you walk past there and you miss it, there's no more down that end, or basically across Manchester, you know, there's not a lot of smoking bins, if you like, or ashtrays.
The council says that this doesn't mean the scheme's going up in smoke. They're going back to the designers for new models, which should appear on a litter bin near you later this year. Nina Warhurst, Channel M News.
Armed thieves have threatened a 12-year-old girl as they stole cash from a newsagent in Haywood. The robbery happened last Friday evening on Benfield Street. A 76-year-old woman was working there when three men brandishing sticks and a crook lock burst in. A woman and a schoolgirl who were shopping there at the time were pushed into the corner as one of the gang climbed over the counter and stole cigarettes. Another ripped out the till and all three then made off. Police are checking a duvet that the robbers left at the scene for clues, which still had a laundry ticket attached. It'll soon be possible for new teachers to train for the job in just 6 months. A fast-track system's being introduced, halving the time it takes for people to switch careers. Changes will also make it possible for high flyers to become head teachers in as little as 4 years. 3 men remain in custody over the death of an off-duty policeman in a hit-and-run in Heaton, Mersey. PC Mike Silcock from Stockport was killed when he was hit by a BMW after leaving a pub late on Friday night. Detectives say they're still questioning a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old. Another man who's 29 is also still in custody. Manchester United are gearing up for the crucial second leg of their Champions League match at Old Trafford tomorrow night. Inter Milan boss Jose Mourinho has tried to rattle Fergie ahead of the game, suggesting that he could one day take over at United when Sir Alex retires. Still, when Mourinho and his team flew into Manchester, there was much excitement, as Ben Bland reports.
They gathered and waited. The fans, the press. And then he came. Please. The special one returned to Manchester. Jose Mourinho with the Inter Milan team ahead of Wednesday's Champions League clash with United.
Please. Good luck, Jose.
Well, when the special one's in town, there's clearly a lot of excitement and quite a buzz.
With an important match ahead, what will the Manchester chef responsible for feeding the Italian players be serving up? Well, you can bet your last bit of linguine that it won't be chips and gravy.
Well, to be an Italian team, there'll be a lot of pasta and lots of wine meat and fish. I don't think they have any red meat at all. Their diet consists in the morning they will have yogurt and lots of Italian fruit juice and fruit and a big croissant, but no chocolate.
Well, it certainly looks as though the Inter Milan players will be well fed while they're here in Manchester. And if they're looking for an official taster,
I know of someone more than happy to oblige. Of course, what they drink will also be an important consideration. When United were last in Italy, Mourinho left a very nice £300 bottle of red for Sir Alex Ferguson. So what might Fergie be planning to crack open when Mourinho is here? Well, with some advice is Mark from the Hanging Ditch Wine Cellars. Mark, your tip for Fergie?
I'd advise the Vega Sicilia. This is Unico from a legendary 1990 vintage. This wine is absolutely world class. It has the ability to sort of overwhelm you with robust, rustic charm. You know, it has this spicy elements, including white pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg. It's a Magnum, at £400. It's money well spent.
So they'll eat, drink, but after Wednesday's result, will they be merry? Ben Bland, Channel M News.
Well, the Italians will be training in preparation for that match at Old Trafford this afternoon. We'll have more on that in the sport later on. With the lunchtime sports headlines, however, here's Sam Goodman.
Thank you very much, James. We'll start with news of Rugby League's Challenge Cup fourth round draw. And looking at Wigan will play Barrow, and Salford have been handed a difficult fixture against Hull. There's an interesting encounter between league champions Leeds at St Helens. Oldham face French side Lesignan, and there's a derby match between Swinton and Rochdale, while Lee Centurions face Wakefield. Well, meanwhile, in the cricket, the fifth and final test between England and the West Indies looks set to be a draw. The tourists closed day 4 on 80 for 3 with a lead of 82 after the West Indies were bowled all out for 544. Well, the fifth day starts at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and we'll have the latest updates from the match in our early evening news. We'll keep in with cricket, and former Lancashire batsman Ken Snellgrove has died. The 67-year-old made his debut for Lancashire in 1965 and scored 3,906 runs in 105 matches for the Red Rose County. Well, Manchester United look to have been handed a boost ahead of their Champions League match against Inter Milan tomorrow. Rio Ferdinand has responded well to treatment of his injury, and he took part in training this morning. And there's plenty of football tonight from our local side, starting off in League One, where Stockport County play Huddersfield. Carl Baker will miss the rest of the season, and that's Jim Gannon's only injury concern. In League Two, Paul Morgan will face a late fitness test for Macclesfield, who play Accrington. Bury face Morecambe, and Mark Tyler's return to Peterborough, so there'll be a return for Wayne Brown. And finally, Rochdale host Bradford. Captain Gary Jones is still a doubt after missing Saturday's defeat to Bury. Well, in rugby, the Sale Sharks flanker Luke Abrams has been handed an 8-week ban after pleading guilty to a second headbutting offence in 2 months. And on to boxing, and Salford's new European champion Jamie Moore has outlined his plans for the future.
You know, I've spoken to Frank Maloney, and the plan is to top the bill, the UK side of the pay-per-view leg for Ricky Hatton's fight on the 2nd of May in 7 weeks on Saturday. So I need to stay active now. I was out for 7 months, nearly 8 months before this fight, because I got messed around by the former champion who didn't want to fight. So you know, while the ball's rolling, I want to keep a bit of momentum going now, and so I'm gonna fight on the 2nd of May, and then hopefully again in July, and then before Christmas a world title shot.
And finally, the Manchester Phoenix take an all-important 1-goal advantage into the Challenge Cup final second leg after defeating Belfast Giants 4-3.
It was a lot of fun to play in. It was an intense atmosphere. The fans were awesome. You know, as soon as the puck hit the ice, we knew it was, you know, ready to go. And you know, we came out hitting, and they came out hitting, and that's the way hockey's supposed to be played. So, you know, it was a lot of fun being out there. We have some great fans here, and you know, I think tonight we looked to them a little to get us going, and they absolutely did that. And you know, we thank them for that. Hits are hits, and you know, it's clean hockey, but it's physical hockey. And you know, like I said, that's the way it's supposed to be played. And you know, you look forward to games like that, and you know, that's what you play for the big games. And you know, coming up, and when we head over to Belfast, that'll be the biggest game of the season so far. We know they're a good team, and it's going to be hard to, you know, pile up some goals on them. So you know, we knew we had to keep it defensively, and you know, it's tough letting a few. Let them get back in it in the end, but you know, they're a good team, and to come out with a 4-3 win is nothing to be ashamed of.
I don't think a 1-goal lead is really what you want going back to Belfast, because you got to win. Either one of us have to win a game, really. I mean, the likelihood of a draw up there, you know, you got to win a game, and then maybe it goes to overtime. So it's close enough that it's still all to play for, which is exactly what you want.
Our goal was to come out with the lead, and you know, we succeeded in that. So. You know, we'll take it to Belfast and give them our best effort, and, you know, hopefully we can bring the cup back.
And that's all from me for now. We'll hear from Sir Alex Ferguson in the early evening news ahead of United's big game against Inter Milan tomorrow night.
Sam, thanks very much for the update. There's plenty more to come between now and 1 o'clock, including the church hoping a big revamp will help fill its pews on a Sunday, and perhaps not one for the squeamish. A celebration of tattooing and body piercing comes to Manchester.
As you know, tattooing has been around for the last 10,000 years, but the biggest growth area for the tattoo industry in the last 5 years has been women getting tattooed. I find that's fantastic.
Welcome back to Channel M's Lunchtime News. Don't forget you can go online whenever you want to see this programme again, or watch any of our reports as well at channelm.co.uk. On there right now, the academic accusing one of our universities of dumbing down, and why families in Manchester won't be allowed to foster or adopt if they smoke. That's at channelm.co.uk. Next, a church in Levenshulme is hoping by demolishing part of the building, it could actually end up increasing the number of people in the congregation. With more, here's Georgia Calvin-Smith.
This church has been an important part of Levenshulme's community for over 150 years. But recently, its congregation and its condition has declined drastically. But a new plan, which might involve the demolition of part of the building, but will secure its future, could mean it'll still be here for generations to come. Now, Sue, what is in store?
Well, we've got a grand plan to provide some business incubations, office space and hot desking service there with business support. We've got a plan for cafe area, which will provide volunteering opportunities and training opportunities for young people, and obviously a community cafe as well. Then there's some worship space downstairs, and upstairs there'll be All FM community radio station, and there's also some social housing.
So it sounds like it's bringing the whole community together.
Absolutely. The idea is that since the closure of the community centre in Levenshulme in 2007, there's not been a community hub. So we want to provide something for everybody. And so we're looking at older people, young people, refugees, people with mental health problems. Everybody can use this building for something.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Well, Brenda is one of the people who's going to be sharing her church with the rest of the community. Brenda, I understand things have gotten pretty bad recently in terms of congregation numbers.
Yes, the numbers have dropped. Years ago, we used to have a really good congregation, 200 to 300. Now we're down to 8 people. Just take a look round. Who'd want, the place the way it is? But with God's willing, once the church and the community part is built, the numbers will increase. And we'll get more people from, we've got a lot of ethnic minority, and we want to bring all the community together.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Well, Ben, I understand you're so close to making this all happen. What's needed?
Well, we've managed to raise the vast majority of the funds. It's just costing just under £3 million for the whole scheme, but we need a further £200,000 to secure the community facilities at ground floor. We're looking to bring this valuable building in Levenshulme back into use, preserving the facade and maximising its potential for everybody in the area.
That's brilliant. Well, as you've heard, they are so close to making this all a reality. They've managed to secure most of the funding, a lot of it from the National Lottery. And, if anybody out there has an extra £200,000 they'd like to chuck towards a good cause, they'd be happy to hear from you. Georgia Calvin-Smith, Channel M News.
Environmentalists are hoping to plunge parts of Manchester into darkness for a whole hour later this month. It's part of an idea to raise awareness of the need to think more about the planet, and will be happening in cities right across the world. Well, joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is Colin Buckfield from WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Just give us an idea what exactly is going to be happening.
Well, we're trying to get 1,000 cities across the world to all shut out their lights for an hour, 8:30 on March 28th. And the idea is that this will send a strong message to world leaders that we need to take action on climate change at a summit they're all attending later in the year. And what we want to do in Manchester, because we picked a few cities in the UK that we thought would really, really embrace this, is pick big areas of Manchester that are just going to plunge into darkness for that hour. And one of the main focuses is the area around the Wheel. So we've got the Wheel and hopefully the Triangle and a lot of the shops and restaurants around there. And we want that to sort of plunge into darkness, and hopefully people will be doing things like candlelit dinners in the restaurants. People will be having a bit more of a festive atmosphere around this kind of thing. So it's pretty exciting stuff already happening in Manchester, and we're up here for a couple of days to try and persuade more businesses and restaurants and things to take part.
Now, if this happens, it will obviously look quite dramatic.
Yeah.
And as well, if it's happening in a lot of other places, it's a coordinated event. Give us an idea of the other places that have have signed up to these?
Well, literally, it's now we've just passed 1,000 cities, so it will happen kind of like with the New Year. So it'll start in New Zealand, in Auckland, and then go across through New Zealand into Sydney, across the world. We've got Rio, Washington, even Las Vegas. We've then got London, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Paris. So things like the Eiffel Tower will be going out, the Wheel in London. So literally all the way across the world. I think it's 85 cities, 85 countries, sorry, so 1,000 cities.
Oh, well, it should be quite a spectacle. We'll look forward to seeing that later on this month. Thank you very much for joining us this lunchtime to talk about it.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Fans of body art from across the country have gathered here in Manchester for a two-day event to celebrate tattoos. The show at Manchester Central featured more than 100 tattooists and body piercers from right across the world.
We've got about 90 artists from all over the country. In fact, they're from all over the world. We've got such luminaries of our industry as Dan Gold of London Ink, the TV reality tattoo show. We've also got Lucifer from New York City. And we've got KG, he's come all the way from Hollywood, from 264 Customs. As you know, tattooing has been around for the last 10,000 years, but the biggest growth area for the tattoo industry in the last 5 years has been women getting tattooed. I find that's fantastic.
X Factor has been cleared of doing anything wrong with its voting lines in the week when Bolton student Laura White was voted off the show. Ofcom's investigated complaints made by people who say they couldn't get through to support her. Checks show that there were no significant problems with the systems. Well, after a wet and windy start, there's been the odd brighter spell around this morning. Checking the rest of the forecast for us now, here's Michelle Eagleton.
Been a gloomy Tuesday across Greater Manchester, and it's set to continue this afternoon, I'm afraid. We did see a lot of cloud and quite a bit of rain this morning. It did tend to dry up as we moved towards midday, but pretty not the best start really for the beginning of the week. But hopefully as the day goes on, it will improve somewhat. As you can see from the picture, seeing highs of between 9 and 10. So the weather is a lot milder than it has been over the past couple of days. Not as much as a breeze as it was yesterday. We saw wind speeds of up to 37 miles per hour, so at least we haven't got any of that. But what I will say is the best of the weather will be reaching us about 4, 5 o'clock tonight. That's when we're going to see a fair bit of sunshine around, staying like that this evening, which will be dry and bright. Make the most of it, because tomorrow isn't going to be that great, I'm afraid. I know that Wednesday we are expecting a lot more rain, so get your brollies ready for that one. Thursday, a mixture of sunshine and showers. Friday is looking pretty gloomy at the moment, but don't worry too much, because by Saturday a bit more sunshine is on its way.
This is Channel M, our top stories. Bosses at the Christie are having to take their fight to get back £6.5 million of charity cash to the High Court. It was invested in an Icelandic bank which collapsed last year, and the organisation in charge of handing out compensation when that happens says the cancer hospital hasn't met rules for getting a payout. The Continuity IRA has admitted responsibility for shooting dead a police officer in Northern Ireland last night. He was gunned down just 2 days after 2 soldiers were killed by the real IRA. Those are today's headlines, and that was the Lunchtime News. We'll have more on all those stories in our early evening news with Andy Crane from 5 tonight, but from me and the team, bye-bye for now.